This is the Lockpicker 1969, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to today's episode of Interview with a Lockpicker. Today's guest is DMAC. Say hello, DMAC.
Hello, and thanks for having me on the show. I really enjoy the interview, so it's nice to get the chance to come on myself.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. So where are you from exactly?
From England, always lived in England. So I live on the south coast, near the sea, which is a nice place to be.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's kind of the area that I live in. It's kind of a tourist area, so we get a lot of people coming down to visit the area, and it's a nice place to live because you've got the sea there, and lots of tourist attractions, lots of things to do.
Okay. I have family over in England, so so how and when did you get into Locksport?
I knew you was going to ask me this, and I had to go. I've got terrible memory, so I had to go back on my. I looked at an old Facebook post actually,
Okay.
which was way before joining any sort of Facebook picking groups, obviously. And I think I did a post picking a 4-pin master lock with a rake. And I was really impressed with myself. I thought I had unlocked some sort of magical wizardry.
Yeah.
But that was back in 2019. So yeah, about 4 years, I think.
Okay. So you told me in our pre-interview something about being locked out of your van.
Yeah, I think it was a long time before I got into picking. I think I've always had an interest, just a sort of more than a passing fascination with what's actually involved in lockpicking, and not having any concept of it. It was like wizardry. It was magical. Same, but when you look on the TV and you see the character jiggling a couple of metal implements in a lock and it suddenly opens. We all know it does get a little bit more complex than that. But I just always had an interest in it, I think. And then I was locked out of my van. I'm a tradesman, so a white van man.
Okay.
And I was locked out of my van on a job. So we called a locksmith out, and the locksmith turned up, and he was there for about 30 seconds. I think he got out of the van. I didn't even. I was waiting to see what he was going to do to get into it because I was really interested. But I barely had a chance to glance at the tool, and the van was open, and I had a sort of massive bill in my hand to pay. But
you blinked and it was over.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. And as we know, that is the case with some locks. So I think I had an interest for a long time, but like most people, I had the well-trodden path of the YouTube algorithm and the sort of familiar faces being recommended, and got into it that way, and got myself one of the Chinese sets, as a lot of us do, and yeah, I think I was hooked. So as soon as I got that set, as soon as I popped my first master lock and raked it open, I think I did the usual running around picking all the locks that I could get my hands on, and was just amazed at how easy it was to get into some of those.
Yeah.
And the ones that I couldn't get into, I think I was just really drawn to understand how I could get into them.
So who were some of your early influencers from YouTube then?
I think it was I think the standard three pretty much, isn't it? It's Bosnian Bill and Lockpicking Lawyer and Lock Noob.
Okay.
The big boys, and they get recommended a lot. I think a lot of the smaller channels you don't tend to find until you kind of get a bit more into the sport.
Yeah.
And I think certainly when I was learning, I think Lock Noob did some great intro, sort of new for new pickers. And also the Helpful Lockpicker has some great video series to sort of just understand the basics.
Well, along those lines, you've done quite a few videos yourself. How did you get started with your YouTube channel?
I think I'd been picking for quite a while before I even started. I'm not sure when I started my channel. I think it was about 18 months ago. So I've been picking for a few years. I think in the first couple of years I was quite a lurker in the community, actually. Didn't get too involved, and just was doing it on my own. But I got into there's a Facebook group, the UK. I'm going to forget the name of it now. UK Lockpickers Coliseum of Locksport, I think it's called. There's a really good group of guys on there, and around that time I was getting into challenge locks. So I was posting on that channel and also the UK Discord as well, and posting up pictures of pins, and people were interested in what I was doing. and asking how I was doing it. And I think I just had it in the back of my mind that I'd like to do some videos to show people what I was doing.
Oh,
And at the time, I had no intention of sort of, doing a channel. Um, just the thought of it, kind of terrified me a bit. But
well, a lot of
yeah,
people are glad you did.
well, it's nice to hear. It's nice to know that, folks are interested in what you're doing, I suppose.
I've
But
learned a lot between you and Lockpicking Dev and your videos doing pins. Learned a lot about making them because of you two.
yeah, oh, thanks. It's great to hear, and it's great to hear that you can sort of help other people along. And I think that when I started the YouTube channel, I think I picked a couple of locks just to kind of get used to the setup and what you needed to record, and just kind of get used to talking to yourself at a desk because that's
Yeah.
essentially what you're doing. It's
Yep.
something that before you start making videos, you don't really understand because you're there with whoever you're watching and sort of joining in with what they're doing. But the reality is that you're sat there at a desk on your own, talking to yourself. So
Yeah.
that kind of takes a bit of getting used to.
It's a little bit of a thing to get, well, talking as if you're talking to another person was an
Exactly that.
adjustment. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think I did a couple of videos, but I think in the back of my head I just wanted to do. Actually, it was the challenge lock making, the pin making videos. It was a series of 3 videos. I did one video where I introduced the tools that I used, and then it was a 3-part making a challenge lock. And it's proved quite a popular series of videos. I get people saying that it's helped them along, which is nice to hear. But I started the YouTube channel just to do those videos, and I got those videos out of the way, and I was enjoying it by then. It was another aspect of Locksport that was not something that I'd expected, but
Yep.
you kind of enjoy doing the videos, and I certainly found, I don't know if you sort of find it yourself, but just the act of sort of talking about what you're doing can really help cement your own knowledge and your own kind of confidence in what you're doing. I mean, I don't know anyone in the real world that is into Locksport. It's all a sort of virtual community and of
Yeah.
people from all over the world.
Well, well, speaking of that, so what has your experience been with the community, both from like when you were getting started and to what it is now?
I think it's excellent. I've heard other interviewers that you've had say the same thing. It's a really welcoming community, and there's other hobbies that I've had that
Yeah,
I think you get. It's a very elitist attitude with a lot of people, and
definitely.
and they don't necessarily share their knowledge, which is a shame. And I think it was like a breath of fresh air, I think, for me coming to the Locksport community and
Well,
just seeing how open people are. And you've
yeah,
only got to sort of say, I don't know, mention to someone that you're after a particular lock or something like that, and someone would just come out of the woodwork and pass it on to you. And I think that's a fantastic thing, and you end up doing the same yourself, passing it on to other people.
well, I think what I found in other online communities that is unfortunately toxic is the people that have nothing better to do than criticize what other people are sharing when they don't share a whole lot themselves. And you don't
For
see a
sure.
lot of that in the lockpicking community, which is really awesome as far as I'm
I think you
concerned.
don't. It's that kind of giving attitude that everyone has. Just I think it brings out the best in a lot of people,
Yeah.
and I think you do get the occasional kind of bad apple sort of crop up, but
Trolls.
they're dealt with pretty swiftly um, by the moderators in the Facebook groups or Reddit or wherever.
So have you had people reach out to you to ask you for direct help on challenge locks at all?
Yeah, I've had, get direct messages about challenge lock pins, specific questions. I think you get them as well on the YouTube comments. If you don't cover something in enough detail,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll get people asking there. And I always like to respond to any comments on the YouTube videos. So yeah, there's a few people that have reached out, as I've done myself, when there's something that I need to know. Yeah, so yeah, there have been a few people.
Okay. So you also did a number of videos showing people about making picks. Can you talk about how you got into pick making and then how that led to you sharing what you've learned with the community through your channel?
Yeah, um, I think that's something that a lot of people dip their toe in, even if you only go as far as the couple of lolly sticks or popsicle sticks that that you epoxy to a pick handle just to kind of make it stiffer. I think that's where it starts for a lot of people. It certainly did with me. I think one of the first picks I got was kind of the bare steel, so very flexible, where the handle is um, the same thickness as the shaft of the pick. So they're very
Yeah.
hard in your hand. So I think I went to the workshop. I just cut a piece of aluminium and just epoxied it to the handle, and it was really crude, but it was my favourite pick for so long. And I think part of that is because I'd sort of added to its creation, and
Yep.
it's kind of rewarding to make your own tools in that way.
Yep.
So I think around that time, there are a lot of people post on the Facebook groups these beautiful custom picks, and
Oh yeah.
I've always made things, always had an interest in doing it, and I thought I'd try my hand at it. I think my first picks were the Sparrows SS Devs set, which I really like, and I've always had a set of those in 15,000s. So I
Yep.
thought I'd put a couple of. It was just strip oak that I put on them, and they were ugly as sin. They were horrendous. I'd pinned them with brass pins, which was using for challenge lock, like a 3mm brass rod.
Yeah.
But I had no knowledge of what I was doing really. I didn't have a metal punch to punch the metal, so I tried using a drill press.
Oh boy.
Um, and it was horrendous. I was squirting WD-40 on it, trying to cool the metal down. It was smoking. It was jumping all over the place. And these picks just ended up ugly. The epoxy that I used wasn't a clear epoxy. It's like a sort of yellowy epoxy that I used for work, and it kind of splurged out all over the handle. It just looked an absolute mess. And I just thought there must be a better way. There must be an easier way. I think I started reaching out to a few people in the community. Certainly, Picksmith was really helpful when I started making picks.
Yep.
And Matt's Lockpit as well was really helpful. And Lockpicking Devs, he did a pick making series as well,
Have you
which was absolutely fantastic. And I think I'd mentioned to you previously when we talked was Daz Evers
Yep.
also did a really good pick making video.
Yep.
So I mean, I didn't intend to do that myself. I think I kind of my skills in pick making improved a little bit from those first efforts. And I
Well,
started getting some really good results, ones that I was really pleased with. And I think I was asked by a few people, "How are you doing this? How are you doing that?" And suddenly found myself that I developed a little bit and was able to pass on information to other
sure.
people.
Yep.
I think it's a great way to put it in the YouTube videos. I know that there are others out there, like I was inspired by Lockpicking Devs and Daz Evers' video series, but I think everyone does things slightly differently.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be helpful to do that series myself.
I'm just getting into it. I've learned a lot from watching both yours and Lockpicking Dev's channels on pick making, and I'm mostly focusing on making handles now. Um, but I've been playing. I try to add something new in to experiment with each time I work on
Yeah.
something. So I've been playing with mica powder with the epoxy to kind of give it the spine, that metallic look,
Oh, very nice.
without having to add a liner. Or I've also tried jewelry wire, laid into the spine when you're epoxying it all together, and just
Yeah.
different things to try and see what works and what doesn't. So
I think that's the great thing that the thing one of the reasons I wanted to do my video series myself was exactly that, because people do things differently. There's no exact right way to do things, and people get different results. There's certainly some picks that I've seen and been sent, and I've done sort of pick swaps with other pick makers, and it's nice to get their picks in your hand because they approach things slightly differently. Last week, I received a pick from Tiffany, the New Zealand pick maker, and he's always been an influence of mine and a real sort of inspirational sort of inspiration of mine, you know, for when it comes to pick making.
So who else has influenced your approach and your design?
I think, to be honest, I think it's everyone. You know, anyone who, it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, someone on rat yolks level, or someone who is just, you know, trying it out for the first time. I think it's, you know, just the enjoyment and the enthusiasm that people show in what they create, I think is inspiring. So I think Pigsmith, Matt's Lockpit, for sure, and Tiffany definitely have really inspired me. I think I got my first custom pick from Matt's Lockpit, and I remember when it arrived, I hadn't made any myself. I think I was using commercial tools picks,
Yeah.
and it was the first custom picks. I think I bought 3 of them off him, and I was just amazed at them. You hold them in your hand because the steel is polished so well.
Yeah.
The wood was so smooth. It was finished so well. And I think that inspired me to kind of find out those secrets for myself, you know, to
Yeah.
sort of try making them myself and try getting some good results. It took a long time. I think there's a steep learning curve, but also it's a knowledge of tools, particularly, as I said, with a metal punch, as opposed to using the drill press that I started out with. And once you've got those tools, it's just a case of practicing, and practice makes perfect.
Okay, so some things that people may not know about you. You talked to me about being a thrill seeker. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was a thrill seeker too much. Not quite an adrenaline junkie, but
Gotcha.
I think my other main hobby is mountain biking, which I got into probably about 10 years ago. So back when I was a kid, I used to skateboard and BMX. I was always on wheels wherever I went. And then I think as I grew into an adult, I just cycled for commuting. And then a few years ago, a friend of mine got me into mountain biking. So it's off-road. Sometimes it's the more extreme kind of downhill stuff, full face helmets, shin pads, all the rest of it, and knee pads. And other times it's just sort of cycling locally. But there's a lot of features that people build in the woods around this area, and so you've got, you know, berms and jumps and drops and
Yep.
things like that, and they're not the best built. And I think as you get into the hobby, you occasionally start taking risks. I think they're calculated risks. I am old enough to know better, or I should be old enough to know better. But I've had a few broken bones, a few black eyes when I've, you know, approached obstacles like jumps. I'm not very good at jumping. I'm much better on the ground. But yeah, so one day I was out, and there was a series of 3 jumps. It's in a spot that I regularly go to, and I've avoided them because they're way out of my league. They're almost as tall as I am, and I'm a big fella. And this one time I was up at that spot, and I don't know what come over me, but the bike stopped pointed towards them, and suddenly I was pedaling, and I just hit these jumps with zero skill. But I paid the price. I paid the price. I made the first jump, and I should have just left it at that, but I ended up following on and going on to the second one, overconfident. But I spun off the bike, flew through the air, and I landed on my wrist, which a lot of people do. I think the best way, they say, is to sort of duck and roll when you hit the ground. But I think instinct takes over, and your hands tend to come out to protect your face.
Yep.
But unfortunately, bones sort of snap at my age. They never did when I was younger. I used to bounce a lot more, but
okay.
Yeah, the result of that was that I shattered my right wrist, and it was particularly bad. I think the surgeon that I spoke to when I went to the hospital said that they grade wrist fractures out on a sort of 1 to 6 scale, something like that. And he said yours is a 6 with complications because the bone had actually come through the skin. It was a mess. There was a lot of metal work that went back into it, and it took a long time to get my hand back really to sort of to a workable level.
So is that connected to what you told me about having physical limitations? And
for sure.
That's the injury then for your hands. Okay.
Yeah, as I say, I shattered the bone, but that stitched itself back together and did a great job sort of patching me up. But I found that I had a lot of difficulties with the tendons. When you break your wrist and it's been in a cast for so long, there's a lot of difficulty moving your fingers. So you need the physiotherapy to kind of get that back.
Yeah.
But it never came back fully. And I still get just difficulties with my grip. Usually, it's mainly between my thumb and my index finger, which, of course, as we know, is what we use to hold the pick when you're picking. So, I mean, on the whole, I've been lucky, and it's got a lot better over the years. But generally, using normal picks, say for pin tumblers, it doesn't limit me too much. I've got a kind of, you can see it in my videos, I've got a kind of goofy way of holding the pick. I tend to use my thumb and my middle finger to hold the pick, and my index finger kind of sits back on the handle of the pick.
Yeah.
And I just find that quite comfortable. But the difficulty I found was with dimple locks or disc detainers when you're actually using a twisting motion.
Yes, exactly.
And I found that immediately. I think I still get fatigue in the hand. It creeps on quite easily just picking pin tumblers. But I think it was the specific twisting motion that you use in dimple picking. I found that I could only pick for 5 minutes and then I was in a lot of pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had reconstructive surgery on my right dominant hand for my thumb, and I understand exactly what you're talking about. It definitely makes it difficult, and I've got maybe 85% usage of my thumb on my right hand, so that picking is a challenge. But okay, so before we wrap up, I was going to ask you one more question.
Sure.
What do you like the most about Locksport?
What do I like the most about Locksport? There's so much to like, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's the reason we do the hobby.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's multifaceted. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because you go at it thinking, right, I want to learn to pick locks, and then you don't realise how deep that rabbit hole goes, because you've got pin tumblers and disc detainers and dimple locks, and it just goes on and on and on. And then for each of those disciplines, you've got perhaps a different set of tools, a different set of skills. Obviously, the challenge lock making, the pin making was a rabbit hole that I've gone down, and certainly recently the custom pick making.
The whole hobby, the whole hobby is a collection of hobbies.
Exactly that. And as we said, even just the YouTube thing, that was something that I didn't intend to get into, but it's been really interesting. And suddenly you're getting into video editing and lighting and all that sort of thing. So I think for me it's just something that constantly keeps me coming back. I think if it was just picking locks, I'd still be really interested, because I haven't lost that thrill that from that first master lock that I raked open. I still get that kind of sense of joy and achievement when I open a lock now. But it's all those other aspects that you can delve into. I think, as I said in the beginning, I've been doing this for only 4 years, and there's still areas that I've not even touched at all. Impressioning, for instance, I've never tried impressioning a lock, and I'd really like to do that. I've got some lovely padlocks that came to me keyless, so I'd certainly like to get some blanks, try impressioning. It just keeps on giving, I think.
Right there with you. So, is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we wrap up?
In the words of Bill S. Preston and Theodore Logan, I'd say be excellent to each other. Right. But I think that the Locksport community seems to have that as a silent motto anyway.
I think it does too,
group of people. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. I want to thank you. This has been awesome. I've really enjoyed getting to talk with you and getting to know you.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
Thank you for this. All right. If you are a subscriber, thank you. If you are not yet a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications and all so you can be made aware of new content like this, as well as giveaways and the drawings for those giveaways. And with that, thank you for listening.